listening to The Two Marks, exclusively on the Pod Station.
Welcome, listeners, to a new show brought to you by The Two Marks. This time we're embarking on a vicarious journey of discovery through the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hold on to your hats as we follow one person's experiences watching all 27 movies in chronological order. This time we are reviewing Thor, The Dark World. Welcome to the Marvel Marathon. Let me introduce my friend and co-host, Mr. Mark Pollard.
Hi, mate.
Hi.
I'm looking forward to doing the Marvel Rewatch, the next film.
Which one?
The Marvel Rewatch.
Oh, the Marvel Marathon.
Yeah, the Marvel Rewatch.
It's like the Marvel Marathon, isn't it? But you're watching it again in a marathon type way.
It has timestamp things with your intro.
Yes.
Because you've updated how many films you've got to watch.
Yes. 27.
Yeah, Eternals and Spider-Man A Long Way From Home.
Far From Home.
Far From Home. Spider-Man 3 is now out, so we've got 2 more films added to the list. This is going to be a rewatch journey that will continue infinitum.
26 miles on a marathon, aren't they?
Yeah, but now we're over that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so now your funny puns lay desolate.
I'm kind of the guy who carries on for an extra mile.
Not what I've heard.
It's the Viagra. I just keep knocking things over with it. By the time we get to the 27, we'll have another 20 to do.
Woohoo.
This is kind of a
We're going to be friends forever. Friends.
As long as my standing order doesn't get declined by the bank, yeah. You cost me a fortune, you do.
Oh dear.
We need to introduce that voice.
We do need to introduce that voice. I'll let you do it this time.
Oh, I feel honoured.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ishtar. Also known as the Gaggerina. We have this guest who this show is kind of for your benefit, really, isn't it? And the benefit of people who haven't seen it, because I did, in fact. Big shout out at Richie from our company. His manager's a bit of a prick, so I don't know whether I should mention the company. I won't. Richie, who hadn't seen any Marvel films at all.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do a podcast. And I went to him, I'll tell you what you want to do. You might want to watch them on Disney Plus. And he went, well, I'm with my girlfriend at the moment. I said, well, why don't you, while you're watching them, listen to the podcast? And he went, I think I'll do that. So there's another person in the world who is like you.
Amazing.
Sad. Who hasn't seen...
Slightly behind the times.
Yeah, has only just got a telly, hot running water. There's 2 of you out there.
Wow.
We are doing this as a service to those who don't know anything about Marvel.
I'm waiting for my MBE nomination for next year.
I hope Esther Ranson turns up and just gives me a heart of gold. If you're out there, Esther, love your show. You did in the 80s.
It was mean. I used to watch that.
I also used to like Jimmy Savile's Jim Will Fix It, but that slightly went wrong.
Yeah, that's her mate, isn't it? Esther Ranson's his mate. She
but
soon gave that away. She went, don't know Jimmy Savile at all.
For once, I was very happy that he didn't reply to my letters requesting for his assistance.
Well, I was a bit surprised because I did want to milk a cow blindfolded and he didn't reply to my letter.
Wonder why.
He would have gone, I'll have straight on that one.
Moving on. So yes, Ish has never watched any of the Marvel movies up until the start of this journey, and she's been watching all the movies in time chronological order, not release date order. And you can find that, well, you can find it on Tinterweb, or you can just go on Disney Plus. They've actually got an option which shows you all of those films. And Mark and I have been following in on the journey because it gave us a chance to do all the podcasts that we never quite got round to doing ourselves at the time, and we're living by proxy of your journey. And how are you enjoying the journey so far?
Fabulous. Absolutely love it. I feel like I'm all marvelled out.
Has there been any standout moments of the 8 films we've done? I mean, including this one, by the way, so 7 before now.
Avengers, just because I feel like that is where it's just completely like blown my mind and started to come together.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is fair. That is actually what happened.
And I do get quite excited by all the post-credit spoilers now because they're all starting to make sense. So that's always like, oh, what's going to happen at the end?
The thing is, we went to go watch a film together, a Marvel one, and people were still
leaving the cinema before the post-credit spoilers.
Early.
Dudes.
You were still early in your journey, so I said, bearing in mind there's 25 films, idiots are still leaving the cinema before the post-credits.
I never understand that. You could understand it for the first, maybe phase 1 of the films, but now when they put in at least 1 post-credit scene, and maybe 2, this is a staple of Marvel films, isn't it? Why would you then immediately rush off as quick? I mean, I can understand if you need a wee, but I mean, you'd come back.
This will leave you totally cold. old because you have no interest with this, but it's a bit like leaving a football game early. You've spent a small fortune buying a ticket and you leave the game 10 minutes early to beat the traffic. How many games are there, if you just look through the weekend fixture list, where goals have been scored in the last 10 minutes and injury time? And it's always baffled me. You watch the majority of the game having paid a shed load of money and then you leave before the end.
I can understand that, yeah. As you're leaving, the stadium goes, "Way!" and someone's just streaked. That's Squid Game. That'd be a good Squid Game, wasn't it? Squidgy game. Going to the cinema is probably almost as expensive as being a season ticket holder.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you have an affinity card with the Odeon. Is it the Odeon?
Yeah.
Who not a sponsor?
2 marks at thepodstation.co.uk.
We would benefit from an Odeon card, just saying, and we could review the films that you have on and mention you every single time we do a review.
In fact, you can use that email if you want to send us an email. Tell us about your Marvel journey so far, whether you found our thoughts useful or indeed whether you've agreed with them, whether you have ranked the films in the same way as us, because at the end, after we've discussed each film, we go through and rank our top 10 Marvel movies. We put the movie we've seen in and amongst that to see where it fares, and we also go through our top 10 Marvel characters and whether or not the ones we've watched in the recent movie have made it into that bracket. We're dead interested in what you guys have to say. You can check us out on Instagram and Facebook and the Twitters. We're on at the 2 marks. Go on there, DM us, and all the other jazz that you do on the old socials. Abusers. Apparently that's a thing on social. We don't get any. It's either people can't be asked or they really like us, and I find it slightly hard to believe that they like us.
I think as a good social science experiment, if we did become famous, I'd like to see the correlation coefficient of how many people abuse us when we're famous as opposed to how many people didn't abuse us when no one knew who we were. The same people who were all hiding behind keyboards didn't bother when we didn't become famous, but then when we have a voice, I think that'd be interesting. And then I can find you and kill you.
That'll be a good social experiment.
Allegedly, people.
It says allegedly. I know where you live.
Oh my God. Right, what's the film we're doing today?
Let's get balls deep into Thor the Dark World, or Thor 2, if you can't remember the last bit.
Yeah, I did actually note Thor the Dark World for this because of the ribbon that I got for Iron Man 2 last time. Or Avengers 1. What was it? Avengers 1.
Yes.
Or Iron Man 2.
Well, no, it's because you boasted, in fact, if I remember,
that I watched it 4
that you
times.
watched it 4 times and still didn't know the opening credits.
No.
I mean, that's kind of,
What evs? I wasn't paying attention
you just
to
give
that.
what evs. You can't what evs it when you boast of watching a film.
This is scientific analysis, this.
I can. Anyway, I made a note of it this time, so that's the point.
It's also mentioned here in the intro, so you couldn't go wrong, could you? If you
Well,
still
she
didn't
did
know,
against Avengers Assemble. He was in the intro then as well. She still paid
that's
no
very
attention.
true. Yeah. Are we wasting our time?
Yes.
Should we just leave the football match early?
Yes.
We're going to unpack this, aren't we? Do you want to go from your notes? Because
No.
I'm going to check with Mr. Pollard, see if you've done notes.
No, I guess we'll go by my notes, eh? This is the 8th film we've watched in the sequence so far. Just another 19 to go.
What should be mentioned is this is essentially the beginning of phase 2, if you're watching them in the phase order. Just so happens that it's also in the chronological order.
Although we're kind of getting to that point where they do. The release order and the chronological order are almost the same now.
I think Marvel just decided the time things were just far too complex to keep in track.
Well, there was only Captain Marvel that kind of got shunted a bit earlier, didn't they? And Captain America.
I think other ones that may slot in may jump around. If anything, they jump into the future, but we don't know that.
Well, there's one, Black Widow, which will be watched in what should have been the right order in the first place.
Yes.
We'll be watching it before or just after Civil War.
After Civil War.
That's how it should have been released, but
Yeah.
we'll discuss that when we get there.
Yeah, that's only about 8 movies away, so it's fine.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
got plenty of time to remember it.
Right, start of Thor, The Dark World, we start with the ether. We get introduced to the big MacGuffin right
Yes.
at the outset.
Can you explain to us what the ether is? All I've got written down is power.
You can see she's starting to adapt my note-making approach.
Nothing to be confused with what dentists give you to put you under. At the moment, I can't tell you what it is because we know what it is. It's a powerful force that is used by the antagonist of the movie, but we know afterwards that it has a bit more value in the MCU than we first thought.
Okay. Is it potentially got a little bit of a serum in it?
No, I think we can mention it because it is in the post-credit spoilers of this film, isn't it, really? Or is it? Are we implying here it's an Infinity Stone?
Oh, actually, don't they say that that's a second an Infinity Stone.
In the collector's thing, they give
Post-credit.
her...
That's true, yeah.
That's okay then, if that's the case. So it's an Infinity Stone.
The Dark Elves had.
Which one is it?
What colour is it? Is
It's
it
red.
blue?
So it's the Space Stone, isn't it? The Tesseract
Yeah.
is the Mind Stone. And those are the two we've come across thus far.
They have a wider connection to the MCU.
I liked the initial part of like setting the scene of how they came about and how Odin's dad kind of defeated them. That was good.
Well, they had to do that, or else the rest of it would have made zero sense, really.
Yeah.
It was interesting how they put that together. I liked it.
It also reinforces how kick-ass Odin is, because you just see him as a one-eyed king, and actually Thor firmly set in stone the battle with the frost giants,
Yeah.
and how they were defeated, and it just shows how Odin has kept everyone in check. They sort of jump in on the seven realms, which you don't see much of. There's an Easter egg I've got later on. They make sure there's order across the seven realms.
Is it 7 or 9?
9 realms, yeah. That's the saying, there's 9. That's inflation for you right away. I'm getting mixed up with something else.
So can you explain to me a little bit more about the realms? Because I feel like that was referred to a little bit more in this story and we actually saw some of the realms.
Well, Thor had to go around
Sorting all this stuff.
enforcing peace,
So... just,
which doesn't sound very peaceful of him.
No. So they're all like planets or like what?
You get, well, in Thor, and even I think in Captain America, you get the world tree, Yggdrasil, I think the name of the tree is, and that connects to the Bifrost. The 9 realms are where they can jump to.
Are they galaxies or universes, all these 9 realms?
Universes.
It's going to be more like galaxies, isn't it? 9 different galaxies.
Realm would be the medieval Norse.
Well, it's the Norse
Yeah.
mythology, isn't
Yeah,
it?
strongly driven by Norse mythology, and they travel there through the Bifrost. The ones that you see, you don't see all of them actually, you do see a few. Vanaheim, Svartalfheim, Jotunheim, which anyone who's seen the reboot of the Suicide Squad, that gets a cheeky mention. It's the name of the building in the Suicide Squad.
I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, spoiler.
And they all die.
And they'll die, yeah, everyone dies. And then you see, obviously, the kingdom of Asgard. You get a glimpse of the home of the demons called Muspelheim.
Okay.
Blink and you miss it, really.
I'm not sure of the other ones. Oh, come on. You can't. That outrageously good pun I've just thrown in there.
Oh, my bad. That's brilliant.
Insert laugh track here. Do it again. Sorry, let me build up for this one.
No, I'm not performing Monkey Mark.
Heineken. I feel like it was a bit of a cheap shot there because you just laughed at it on the back of your shit joke.
She was in sympathy mode, that's why she laughed at yours.
I think she's crying there. Do you want a tissue?
Yeah. Okay, so Odin and the kingdom of Asgard is responsible for overseeing those?
No,
or
they've
like...
made themselves responsible because they perceive themselves as being the good guys.
Okay.
And that's just, I guess, a perspective, really, because the frost giants don't necessarily feel that they are. Because you've got to remember, Odin went onto their planet, kicked all their asses, and stole a baby. Whose perspective is it? Was he saving the child from certain death, or was he abducting a child, which is kind of naughty?
It's not good, is it?
Well, the last time I watched the news, people were getting put in prison for that stuff.
I will return them. I thought it was okay. So every time I see a pushchair in Asda, walk away with it. So, I mean, that's just my bad, I suppose. Apologies for that. Thank you, Marvel, to all put me right. Oh, no, thank you, Mark, for putting me right.
No, you're all right.
I now know kidnapping is bad. Unless it's for financial gain, in which case it's good, isn't it? What Mark's saying there is right. I think what they've done is because they're quite a powerful
Being.
civilization,
Yeah.
and they are civilized because essentially the frost giants just throw rocks at you.
Yeah.
They've got a huge army. They've got the Valkyries, or had the Valkyries. You don't know this at this point. But no, but it's Norse mythology, so it's okay. And the Valkyries are pretty hardcore.
Okay.
And they're well trained as well.
It's said at this beginning part that Thor's going round reinstilling peace in the 9 realms. Again, I suppose it's whichever side of the fence you're sitting on as to whether he's enforcing or instilling peace.
Well, that moves into another social science experiment of where you sort of feel you're complicit in the deeds of others. We all know about where that goes. The fire planet you probably wouldn't want to go to because it's very hot. I couldn't do it. But that's where Surtur lives.
Who's that?
You don't know who he is until the next one.
Okay.
It's in the comics and it's referenced in the film. You just don't know its meaning at the moment. But I suppose some of the planets are just like, one's really hot, one's really cold. Would you really go there if you wanted to? Probably not. You're not going to invade it. The kind of peacekeepers. The Dark Elves are just another group of people who are maybe a little bit more chaotic, may want to gain power. Thor and the Asgardians go, no.
Well, you see, again, it's all a matter of perspective here. To put it in a simple analogy, the Asgardians want the lights on and the Dark Elves want the lights off. Who's right? Because if you like the lights off, then you're right with that, and if you want the lights on, and that's kind of what they want, isn't it? They're Dark Elves. They like it dark and things dark, and the way that the Asgardians live is directly opposed to how they want stuff, so there is a clash of culture, so to speak. They like it light. They like it light.
That fence you're sitting on must be hurting your arse.
Well, no, I'm simply creating I obviously very much side on the lights on. Hey.
Only because you're in the gym. 2 months ago, he was lights off. And take the bulbs out of all of the rooms.
Just a thing. Should we not have watched Iron Man 3 before this? Because I'm getting confused.
No, Iron Man 3's after.
Wikipedia told him.
No, that you're looking at phase 2, you're not looking at the timeline.
Can I also just mention that I liked the fact that we left Avengers Get Together?
Assemble. Christ alive.
Oh my God, were you being serious? I mean, to be fair,
I literally just had a mind blank then. Anyway.
The Avengers Get Together. Not at this time of year, unless you're in number 10.
That's the romantic comedy version of the film.
It's where they hook up and have a shawarma.
Swap houses for the weekend.
Yeah.
Where Thor took Loki back to Asgard, and then this film then obviously shows the continuation of that. I like the fact that this is happening a lot in the movies now.
Well, it's been happening for 7 movies so far.
And continues for another pile more.
But it was good because then obviously you see Loki being ass kicked by his dad a little bit verbally, and then being put into the jail, which was cool. The jails are cool. That's really a comfortable jail, that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, it is for your eye. It isn't when you're immortal. It's like you're there forever.
Yeah, getting an armchair
but
when you're going to be there forever.
He's not
kind
immortal,
of feels like
though, is he?
He's a god.
He lives for 5,000 years because that's what he says.
That's
to
pretty.
Loki isn't. No, he's a black.
Yeah, no, but we're not saying. But they live for 5,000 years.
Yeah, the frost giants.
Frost giant.
But even as a god, he's takes a lot to kill him. Let's say for the benefit of legal reasons, they age slower than we do, and they're probably a lot fitter than us. They don't have, a Just Eat round the corner. They're probably eating a lot of vegetables and fruit, and he's also a frost giant. Probably hybrid DNA of being also a god. Probably going to last a lot longer than 80 years.
But it's not Strange Ways, is it? Or whatever a local...
Well, it might be funny Strange Ways. You got to sit on the roof.
So you get a bit of fresh air.
And throw toilet rolls at people, which you're probably a bit worried about that with COVID.
Hey, shit, I remember
well, you need to keep hold of them, don't you? But they weren't throwing them now, That's people, going on the black market. 500 quid you've just lobbed off the roof.
Well, the interesting thing is where do people keep all of that? They keep it up their arsehole, don't they? So whether... So we're going to find a toilet roll up your arse.
The irony.
I know, we digress. It's not Strange Ways because it's Asgard and the technology is pretty advanced. But let's look at it. You would probably think it's a holidays. It may end up being like a ho season's holidays.
I've stayed in some cheap hotels with no windows that felt very much like that, I have to be honest.
Well, for 5,000 years, that pretty nice place is probably going to become a little bit boring.
All right, well, when you put it that way, obviously it's not, but it just looks a little bit nicer looking than
But your interior design, you
cell.
probably go up, put a chaise lounge there, put some tapestry on the walls,
well,
and like 5,000 years later we're still looking at, I don't know, Harry Styles on the wall, thinking, it's getting a bit dated now, isn't it?
But it was also good that you got an indication of the relationship of Loki with his mum a little bit more in this one, that you didn't get in the previous ones.
Well, you actually see in this film her performing almost a Loki trick, and I say that bearing in mind she's probably taught Loki that very trick, which is the
projection thing,
the projection of your person.
Yeah. That was really, really good, by the way. That was a powerful scene, that.
Well, you see her, she's very kick-ass anyway, which is a shame why she dies in this film.
I know. Aww.
You can see what she's taught Loki, and you can understand why there is a close relationship between those two.
You need to lose major characters, because otherwise it becomes like...
Otherwise, in the later Avengers movies, there'd be 4,425.
Because you need to have loss, don't you? There needs to be that reason of why you're all geared up. It's good that Marvel doesn't shy away of losing good characters.
I know this happens later on in the film, and it's not chronological probably based on where we are right now.
They're all over the show, aren't they?
But her actual death burial scene was actually really powerful. Did you not think?
Yeah.
I like the move. I like the soundtrack of that. I like the whole ceremony. It was
with
quite,
the boat and that.
Yeah,
That's very Norse though, isn't it?
Well, they were missing the coins for the
you said that,
ferryman.
Didn't you?
Yeah. You'd only have coins over their eyes to pay the...
That's Greek.
Is it?
Yeah. You're getting mixed up with the River Styx, which is Greek mythology.
Right.
Come on, know your classics.
I know.
Canal, you don't know the title of films. He doesn't know his classics.
Match made in heaven.
Because if you're crossing the River Styx, I think you have to pay the ferryman.
Yeah.
2 coins, that's Greek mythology.
And then she goes off the edge of the cliff. Wonderful. wonderful, wonderful
good
scene.
And she needs to die for them to be able to forge together. And the other thing, going back to him staying in that room, because he has that gift of projection, can't he just project something himself? Just project a lovely turkey dinner.
Well, he did project, because after his mum's death,
He projected to Thor that he was okay.
He projected the cell looking all tidy and him looking very dapper, and when Thor told him to pack it in, he was a gibbering mess sitting in a destroyed cell.
I felt for Loki.
You love Loki, don't
I
you?
just love Loki, yeah. That shows the heart that Loki has.
If I remember rightly, didn't you say you go for a pie dinner with him?
Yeah, defo. I love Loki.
I suppose.
What about you, Mark Pollard?
Well, the death scene of his mum, and indeed the death scene of Loki in this film, for me, starts a fabulous journey for Thor, because I think it's very lightly brushed over in this film. Because I reckon come the end of this film, you weren't sitting there thinking, well, I wonder how Thor feels about this ending, because in one film he's lost his mum and his brother. How would you feel if you'd lost your mum and your brother in the space of however long period it is, a week,
2 hours,
2 hours, whatever it might be?
Well, in the film.
Yeah. But
that's a shit night out, isn't it? It is. I went to the cinema to watch the film and my family's died, you know what I mean?
But he's lost 2/3 of his family in a really short space of time. Where does that leave him as a character?
Yeah.
The thing that we don't really take into consideration is he's a higher being. He's not a mere mortal or a human.
No.
So to lose two powerful people, you look at like the opening fight scene, there's only a few of them on the battleground and they're fighting essentially an army. They're shit hot fighters. And his mum's obviously trained, because she's always wearing armour. She's not wearing just slacks and overalls, is she?
No, she headed up that fight scene with the Dark Elf, didn't she? To save Jane.
She's shit hot in terms of that. And so to die in those circumstances must be even worse than just a run-of-the-mill car accident.
I mean, it is sad that we lost another female strong character, to be honest, because I did like
particularly
her.
Defending that waste of space of a character, Jane, playing Jane.
Well, yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
God, yeah.
I mean, should have jibbed Jane off,
She
to
was
be
literally
honest.
asleep at the wheel on that one.
Yeah, massively.
I sort of argued a corner in the first movie, but in this movie, she might not have been there.
Could have replaced her with a plum. Would have got an Oscar for it.
Yeah, true that.
I like her in certain things. I think she was good in, was it Black Swan?
Yeah.
The earliest one was in Leon, which is a bit problematic now. I thought she was good in that. Natalie Portman was in Star Wars, the prequel.
She was, yeah.
She was alright in those, I suppose. This one, I thought she was asleep at the wheel. And in the comics, it's a strong female character. Not
Well,
that
she
I want
becomes Lady Thor, doesn't she?
does, yeah. Not that you want to hark on the fact that there's strong female characters, because everyone goes to the cinema going, oh, strong female characters, and forget the fact that film and TV isn't real. If you want strong female characters, I just look at my mum. There's a strong female character.
Listen to him.
No, but there's people like that. They're strong female characters. People go to the cinema and go, ooh, there's not enough representation of strong female characters. It's a fucking film. It's not real.
But I mean, if you were wanting to save one or the other, I'd totally go for Thor's mum over Jane any day.
There's not even a choice there, is it?
Yeah.
I would, absolutely. She was just diabolical. I don't cash in on the whole female thing. I think if it's well written and everyone gets enough airtime and it's cohesive and the storyline works, then yeah.
But she gets no role in this, does she? There's none of her scientific skills put into play here. No. She gets infected with something, and the purpose of the film is to get it out of her, and she can't do anything to help, and that's pretty much the full extent of her involvement in this film.
It just draws Thor's emotions out, though, isn't it? I feel like that's the principal part of her role, just to show that she's his weak point.
I mean, she plays a victim, essentially, in this.
Yeah.
The other thing, he kind of dumps her from long distance, because he hasn't really bothered with her since the first film, and just appears...
Do you know, hang on a minute, I'll pull you on that. I don't think he did, because he wasn't dating... I've got it on here, Lady What's-It from the Fighting
Lady
40.
Sif.
Yeah,
She's lovely.
Lady Sif. She's got a proper thing for him, and he's not having any of it, and he's moping around all sad and lonely because he's missing old Jane. Fucking Jane is out on a date.
With dude.
Do you know what I mean? So if there's anyone who's jibbed off this old long-distance relationship, it's old Jane who's dusted off the old brogues and sexy underwear.
Which is from the 80s. That's the last time
Where did that come from?
It's
I was trying to think of what girls might put on for dates.
A
but
skirt?
She's dusted off her dancing shoes and her naughty underwear and got herself out there, whereas old Thor's wandering around cleaning his naked, impressive torso on his own in the room in the moonlight.
Who doesn't do that?
Well, I don't, because I haven't got that torso. I happily clean by moonlight, but I definitely don't look like that.
I haven't got an outdoor shower. But she, bitch. But maybe she thinks she can get away with it. He's on Asgard, miles away.
It's the postcode rule, isn't it?
Well,
Different postcodes.
Little does she know that Heimdall is keeping an eye on her.
Oh, he's like proper. He's keeping a couple of eyes on her with a massive sword.
Well, it's like he's the social media of the old age, isn't
He's
he?
like, you haven't seen this Twitter picture. Have you look at this on WhatsApp? I don't know which one all the kids are with. What is it?
The
Snapchat.
Snapchat, yeah, maybe.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like she's like this going, yay! 2 thumbs friendly, and then Heimdall's going, oh, Thor, you might get down there, make a presence.
Old Jane just tagged herself into a tidy little restaurant, and she ain't paying the bill apparently.
Yeah, hashtag Thor arse.
Well, look, it's nice. That whole scene of like Jane turning up again is only nice because one of your lovely characters shows up, doesn't she, Mark?
Oh, I think I know who you're going to say.
Who?
The girl.
The one that you like. The girl.
Is that the best you're going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, Darcy.
Darcy.
I mean, Darcy's brilliant in this film. I was looking through my top 10s to see where Darcy was on the back of... And obviously, we've been adjusting it. But Darcy was down in number 13. In fact, she wasn't. She was number 11 in my top 10.
Okay.
And I think this film elevates her beyond that because I think she's brilliant. Aside from Loki and Thor, she, I would argue, is probably the next best character after that in this film.
Can I ask, are you saying that with hindsight of another...
No, absolutely not. I think she's funny when she comes in for the date scene. She is funny there. She's funny throughout while they're seeing the gravity thing going all over and she keeps on referring to the intern as the intern.
Yeah.
She's funny when they break out Eric from the mental institution.
Yeah.
She's funny at the end when she's smooching the intern. She's funny throughout this film, and you pulled a face then, Ish, but go on then. You give me a character other than Thor and Loki who you think probably did a better performance throughout this film than Darcy.
Look, Darcy didn't have enough airtime for me, honestly. I think she's a funny character, but I don't think she's up there with the principal characters yet.
Like who?
Like Thor and Loki.
Well, I said Thor and Loki, but
she's
after
definitely better than Jane, 100%.
Come on, who else do you think did as good a job in this film as Darcy?
For the humour, she did the best of all of them. Yeah?
You're not giving me any names. Is this because you don't know any names?
Yeah, basically.
What's it called?
Think of me, Bob.
What's the film called?
Let me go through the list of the main characters. You've got Malachite, who's dog shit. Odin, who I suppose Odin you could argue a little bit, but I don't think personally he is as good as Darcy.
Heimdall.
In this film.
Heimdall's good.
Yeah.
Heimdall's good, but
and he's funny.
Again, I still don't think he's better than Darcy in this film. You've got the Warrior 6 plus Miss What's-Her-Face. I don't think they're in it enough.
Lady Sif's
Jane,
good.
we've already touched on. Frigga gets killed off. Eric doesn't play a huge role. He's sort of funny, but I don't think he's involved as much. I would argue Odin's probably the only person you could legitimately argue.
Odin, then.
There's a lot of characters in this are just cipher characters that are made for moving the narrative forward rather than ones that are reoccurring. Well, I mean, Odin is integral to the whole of this.
I thought Darcy and the intern were great comic humour. Spoiler alerts here. Thor Ragnarok, which is the next Thor movie, is even more funny than this film. I think some of the humour in this film was great. Darcy was brilliant. The intern was brilliant. Loki's funny in this. I think Thor starts to find a little bit of levity in his character because he was very serious in the first one and he was a little bit serious in Avengers, and he's kind of been forced to be a bit more humorous because of what the other characters around him are doing.
Agreed.
But yeah, Lady What's-It properly wants to play with Thor's hammer.
I don't think they did anything, did they? Just like
She just likes him.
Oh.
She's been carving in a tree.
Initials.
Yeah.
I hope it's not the Tree of Life because that'll be sacrilege. She's scrubbed out the other realms. That's why I said 7. She scrubbed out the 2 realms by mistake.
She should have been dropping the news that Jane's been dating to Thor.
She's dating the guy from the It Crowd, isn't she?
Yeah, the Irish guy.
Yeah, Chris...
Whatever.
Yeah. Can we...
Well, we're up to on your notes.
Well, I've come up to the next thing, which was the longest Volvo, which is the car that they drive away from in the scene. And my uncle used to have one of these, and it was like trying to turn the Titanic round. It was one of those, but they are the longest cars. In fact,
Volvos,
and they had no power steering as well, so trying to negotiate one of those things in a multi-storey car park and then trying to park it into a space was nigh on impossible. I just felt I needed to share that.
Larders were quite long as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a nice throwback. Can we talk about that whole realm thing where they all come together and therefore Jane gets sucked in? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Can you explain it a bit more?
So that's the 9 realms, right?
Once every whatever, all the planets come into a straight line.
The convergence.
The convergent, thank you.
So all the planets that these places are on, all these realms, let's call them planets, right? Basically, but these planets may well be in different galaxies or universes. I'm not an astrologist, so unless you are, you can come back to me, an astrophysicist. I'm neither of those two things. However, this thing where the planets align is called a convergence. Call it a massive
traffic jam.
What do you call it when you have a moon passes the sun or the sun? Eclipse. Of your heart.
Wow, you two are really doing some of the heavy lifting with the old vocabulary today.
I'll have you know, at least I know the name of the film.
You beat me on that.
And also I knew the name Convergence. We wouldn't have got there if I
Alright,
said...
I'm the shit one today, that's fine.
Yeah, but this is for you. You're supposed to tell us what you've seen and go, you remember that convergence? What's all that about? Anyways, Mark says every, 1,000 years or something, all the planets align and it gives this link to the realms.
Okay.
And that's what was happening in that scene where portals between the galaxies and the gravity things were all sort of intermingled.
But it was kind of not realistic that she got sucked in, because, I mean, would that shit really happen? Like, people would...
In real life?
Yeah.
No, because it's a comic book film.
But we're always talking about how realistic things are.
No.
Are we?
I've not seen any evidence of anything even remotely like that.
The only realistic thing that happens in this world is people get sucked off.
Okay. Moving on.
Well, they do, generally. The only thing that's probably true about it is we do have lunar and solar eclipses.
Eclipses. So do you reckon...
Sorry, what do we have?
Eclipses.
Yeah, we do have moons and things align. Astrologists and people who do astronomy will say, oh, the Capricorn is in Uranus and things like that, and they go, it's aligned with...
Only on a weekend.
Yeah, if you're lucky. That happens in real life, but, you know, we don't get caught up on it, and never do we find ourselves portaling to things and getting sucked off.
Yeah, I just thought it was a bit weak that it just so happened that Jane was in the same area that all that shit was happening, and so she's the one that gets sucked into the other realm and therefore injected.
Oh, no,
with
not
this
just
thing.
her. Shoes and car keys, they went as well.
Oh yeah, the shoes and the car keys.
Full
Yeah,
hit, everything went.
yeah. So not that keen on
in
that
the location
scene.
that gets used, the most destroyed location of all time, the London Admiralty, it gets destroyed by that massive obelisk thing, doesn't it?
Can't remember. Yes.
Massive part.
I'm going
of
to
the
say
film.
yes.
Doesn't the Dark Elves come through it? So
It was Greenwich.
oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
What we're establishing is the ether, and the convergence is just a cosmic event that happened. That means the power of the ether is probably heightened
during that time.
the same as the energy from the sun. When the sun's closer to planet Earth, when the solar flares, it creates havoc on Earth with
Well, I think what they were saying is the space stone, if that's what indeed it is, because everything's aligned and because there's almost portals that lead you through into one another. So if you shot a laser beam through the portal, you can destroy all of the things in one foul swoop, as opposed to having to go to each individual galaxy to do it.
That
It's
makes
in a
sense.
straight line, and it's every 5,000 years.
It's killing two birds with one stone type
Got it.
analogy.
So she gets the ether inside of her,
Oh yeah.
and then obviously,
And it had nothing to do with Thor, just saying.
Heimdall says, "Oh, I can't see Jane anymore. You better get your ass down there, Thor." And then he goes down,
Alright.
doesn't he? And then takes her back to Asgard.
I'm glad you did the screenplay for this film. Very exciting. No wonder you didn't like it. You should narrate the book. And then Heimdall says, oh, you need to get yourself down there.
I'm looking at you just to check if I've actually remembered that correctly or not.
Why are you asking me? You did the narration.
Yeah, Heimdall.
Heimdall.
Heimdall says, mate, I've just been watching your bird cheating and now she's vanished, which means one of two things. Either she's gone to another galaxy where bad stuff's happening, or
Kidnapped.
she's in the bedroom doing things and they're wearing tinfoil hats and
Duvet
they're
cover
read
overhead.
the brains. Yeah. You might want to go down just to check which one.
Well, when you were a kid, when you used to run across the bedroom and jump onto the bed and cover yourself in a duvet because of the monsters under your bed, did you ever do that?
Yes.
And then put your glowworm bed light on?
Oh, yeah, I had a glowworm. Oh my god, throwback.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you two.
At that point, a duvet was strong enough to essentially destroy a monster.
Absolutely. Oh, glowworms.
Yeah. Although we didn't know at the time that monster was Jimmy Savile.
True that.
I don't know why it was under my bed. Look, Jimmy, just keep it down with the snoring, will you?
Oh, moving swiftly on. One of the interesting things is Eric.
Yes.
Who at the very outset of this is shown running around Stonehenge.
Okay.
Bolloco.
Okay, I totally have a question about this. How the fuck does Eric end up finishing with the Avengers, having obviously come out of Loki's
Spell.
blah blah spell, yeah.
Blah, blah.
and then end up in Stonehenge. How does that happen?
Probably
He didn't go from A to B. There's obviously been a little bit of,
train.
The stress of
Uber
the
taxi.
Loki almost killing humankind.
He's still himself. He's just been persuaded by Loki with the Mind Stone, if we're getting the stones right. And then he goes to see some other stones, Stonehenge, which also have history as being powerful, because no one knows who built them.
They do kind of touch upon this with Hawkeye, don't they? In the Avengers film.
Yeah.
People who are recovering from having been under the power or spell of don't necessarily always come out of it with their full mental well-being intact.
Okay.
And Eric has suffered that. Well, he says, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's had a god inside his head.
So to get a bit religious-y, even though we're on Norse mythology, the reason why the Ark of the Covenant had a tent around it and the Holy of Holies and had a guy who had a piece of rope attached to his leg was because the power of that artifact was too much for human minds to comprehend. So they had the reason why the person had the rope around, so if he did lose the plot and he was someone who was trained to be in that tent, they could pull him out. Essentially what you've got is a god who's also a frost giant, but let's go with the fact that Loki is in fact Norse mythology god in his head, who's now opened his mind to all of these things. Yeah, all in one go. And your brain, we only use, 6%, if that? So your brain now has gone boom, your synaptic pathways have been created, and you go, I can't believe all this stuff's here. So he's now seeing things. He's gone to Stonehenge because that's...
And probably many things that he now knows, possibly even understands, but as a human is limited in...
his ability to explain
either
it
do it or explain. Yeah, exactly.
So, and as Mark said, he's probably been working on things like string theory and super strings and black holes. Mark knows all about super strings.
All about the strings, yeah.
All about the strings. He's gone a little bit mental. He's gone to Stonehenge because that is an ancient artifact that people connect to from a astrological point of view.
Right.
How he got there? Uber. He got a lift. Thumbed his way in. Which
and
is
then
why
got
he's got a Thor arse as well.
Yeah.
And then someone's grabbed him. He's also naked. Maybe that's a side effect of the fact that he's that keen to get there. He hasn't bothered to get dressed. How many times have you gone out with your shoes on?
All the time.
Tell you the story about the way you went out with two different shoes.
Yes, thank you.
It's like that.
It was dark.
One was a croc, which is disgusting.
It wasn't, by the way.
One was a hedgehog you trod on.
I'll be made fun of, but I won't have anyone believing I wear Crocs.
Draw the line at Crocs.
Absolutely.
If you can't bend over to do a shoelace, you've given up on life. He does something like what Mark did, but didn't bother with any clothes and went, I need to get to Stonehenge. It's like when people go to Alton Towers, they do put clothes on.
Yeah.
He gets to Stonehenge and he's running around. You shouldn't even be on the grass in Stonehenge. You're not allowed on, are you? So he's running around, gets arrested, and the first thing people do is go, you're a bit mental, mate. And he's in the mental home now. The wonderful thing that we touch upon later on, which I'll expand upon, the notice board he's drawing on, and the people he's more or less doing a seminar to, who are also a bit mental, like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is actually extremely important.
Okay.
But it's an Easter egg, so I'll do it later.
Yeah, and you did see Stan Lee in there.
Yeah, which is one of my Easter eggs.
Okay.
There's another bewildered inmate. He is talking sense. The problem is his approach and his demeanour and the way he's gone about doing it is probably not what humans would go, you're sane. There is precedent for that because in Hawkeye and also in the comics, when he gets possessed in Avengers and Black Widow has to sort him out, he's dealing with that as well.
Right, okay.
Like the Manchurian Candidate type program that was run in America.
Mancurian or Manchurian?
I say Mancurian, not Mancunian, because one's different. You're Mancunian, aren't you?
I am.
Hey, if one of them gets in your head, you're done for.
Yeah, exactly. Ruined. So it's the Mancurian, but if you're American, you say Manchurian, don't you? I don't know. Who cares?
Potato.
Exactly. But the program they ran to brainwash people to then give them a couple of code words, a bit like another film that you'll be seeing very soon, which activates them. And like they tried to do in the Cold War with the Russians who infiltrated America. The idea being is that they get you to do something that you wouldn't have done yourself, but you've been coerced into doing it. And then when you realise what you've done, you have that extreme regret. So that's what he's probably got.
Right, okay. That explains it a little bit more.
Sorry if it was a bit long-winded, but there we are.
That makes sense. Cool.
Okay, well, I was sort of trying to go time. We've been jumping around, so I'm quite happy now to just go a bit sporadic. Sticking with Heimdall, he gets a bit more to do in this, doesn't he?
He does.
Right, can I just also ask another question?
You can ask whatever question. We're here for you to ask these questions.
Heimdall, right, spots or senses this evil flying thing coming into Asgard.
Yeah.
How the hell does it get into Asgard?
Through the Bifrost.
But he controls the Bifrost.
Well.
So that's what threw me a little bit, because I was like, surely any random enemy could then just enter into Asgard.
Well, no, I think the Bifrost was compromised somehow, wasn't it?
I didn't fully understand how that happened.
Yeah.
I think he was asleep at the wheel. Heimdall was probably having, I don't know, Snapchat.
Well, he was too busy watching
Jane.
gigging in on the date with Jane.
Yeah. Maybe he'd been watching the Freeview on the adult channel. I don't know. Because you only get 5 minutes, don't you? So he apparently, allegedly. That's why I don't subscribe. I only need 4. Do it twice. 3 times on Sunday. So maybe. Bad marketing thing there. Should have just gone 2 minutes and then everyone would have subscribed to the show. But there you go. It's not a sponsor.
2 marks at podstation.co.uk.
Maybe that's what he was doing. I think he was distracted with.
Okay.
Because I agree, it would make no sense, would it? If you could
No.
have this huge Bifrost that protects you and then you go, hang on a minute, there's
I'll
a
just
massive
sail through with the same technology
Maybe he was
that
bored.
the shield guys use, obviously, to make it invisible, and just sail all the way through. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but he might have just got bored. And in fairness to him, he does then take it down.
Yeah, he does.
Maybe they
In
went with
good
the utility
style.
warehouse and pay the bill.
Maybe.
Perhaps he was playing with them. He was going, I'm going to let you pass. I'm going to let you pass. I'm not watching. I'm not what, you know, like you do with the kids where you pretend that you haven't seen them, but then you go, all right, they've got to learn the valuable lesson of losing. And so, until you then...
He fucked that up, though, didn't he?
Well, no, because he took the ship down.
No, but then all hell broke loose because everybody was then inside.
Well, I suppose.
The shields all went down and all that kind of crazy shit happened, didn't it?
But then the film would have ended very abruptly if that didn't happen, because there's not a third act of the film.
Is it the third act of the film?
The invasion of the Dark Elves, who basically ram raid.
No, that's not the third act. The third act's when they go into
Sorry, it's because of
Greenwich.
notes. Yeah, because that's the same ship, isn't it? The same ship that cuts
No,
up.
they've obviously got more than one ship. I think they've a car park full of them, or a
Yeah.
ship park full of them.
Yeah.
But they're invading, aren't they? I think they've got an armada of ships. The one
Oh,
that they
he
have.
wants to pat himself on the back because he remembered Armada. He just can't remember which scene it was.
That one breaks
Well-
down in Asgard, which is what they...
Breaks down AA.
It's like the Asgardians. What's the AA stand for?
Asgardian assistance.
I mean, crashes into
Needs a painter.
Asgard. And then the guys escape on it, because obviously still at this time Loki's still in prison when the guys are coming in on the ship. And then...
I mean, crashing is an understatement. When they go into
cleansing.
that area with all those pillars and manage to
Yes.
wipe them all out, and then when Thor decides he's going to sneak out and manages to wipe out all the remaining pillars.
Yeah. And the building still stands, you were mentioning.
Yeah.
That's not structurally sound, that building.
Well, they're obviously not load-bearing pillars, are
Not
they?
load-bearing pillars at all. But we're not in a human realm, are we? So shit like that could just fly.
You mean what you're saying is that they wouldn't have needed any planning permission?
Steels or RSJs? No, definitely not.
No, and also building it in space, so it's not got any oversight, has it?
And gravity, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we just solved it.
It was like watching my first driving lesson when they were trying to get through there. Like, well, mind the lamppost. Never mind. There's another one here. Well, nope, taking that out as well.
20-point turn.
Yeah.
They made it part of the actual exam. It was so good.
Yeah, no.
You went reversing that Volvo way.
Trying to.
You might have thought they were driving it, given the way they were trying to get out of there. The other thing I put on my notes at this point was I could do with the dark bomb for my fat bits. You know, it makes things disappear. I was like, yeah, if I strategically place some of those in certain places.
You would not be there anymore. It's not going to just take a little bit of your
You
fat,
do
gonna
realise
take
it's
the
a
whole
black
thing.
hole. It's a quantum singularity. All it would do is you just put it inside you and you suck it the rest of you in.
Hello.
You'd just be a hole in space, but then as a result of your selfishness, would then also start sucking everything else in.
Well, all right. I mean,
You haven't thought this through. I
Funny
want a
though.
dark bomb because I will lose some fat and also half
So
the planet.
you definitely don't want a dark bomb.
I think that's the whole point of why they're a little bit panicky, because it's creating a black hole that is going to suck in the entirety of the planet.
yeah, but it didn't. There
Well, no,
were
'cause
only
it's-
bombs on the spot that just took.
Yeah, but they are small singularities.
I know, but that's my point. If you have a small enough singularity, you can just take enough away that.
Is that like laser fat
but then you'd
reduction?
have a big fat hole in your stomach.
Yeah.
Well, no, because I'd only put it on my love handles at the side.
But all the food would just fall out of your sides.
Well,
Although
I
your
could do-
stomach's not there, is it? It did have a floppy intestine.
Or a kidney.
I think you're overthinking these.
I think you've overthought it.
Yeah,
Well,
also.
if that's what you've come up with as a solution, I think I'll be on Dragon's Den with this. Oh, dark bombs on
Next.
£2 million investment.
Then the big monster, I was going to call him the big bad, but he's not. He's the second big bad. Monster breaks out of prison.
The monster. Should we call him Steve for the benefit of this?
Go on, elaborate on this thing.
Big Steve.
What will you watch? Big Steve breaks out.
And then then Steve breaks out everybody else but Loki.
I think you're talking about the dark elf that
The Ravager.
swallows the
Is that the Ravager?
Well, no, there's
swallows
the
the other pill.
Yeah, the other.
There's
Yeah,
There's one that
exactly.
breaks a pill that makes him... So a bit like
Yeah,
the
that
Zulus
guy.
used to do and basically have drugs and get proper mental on it.
So is that guy Steve?
Mighty Meaty
Big Steve. Big
Yeah,
Steve, he's in the pub.
Right,
Yeah.
so we'll know.
Good dartsman.
Oh,
Yeah, he's got a temper on him though, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah. And if he drinks, he's a nasty drunk.
okay. So Steve.
Big Steve, 10 pint Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Liked him.
You like Steve?
10 pint Steve.
Yeah, he's
Wait,
powerful.
Is it because
He
he's
kicks-
cheeky?
He's powerful. He's cheeky. Is he cheeky?
No, he's not cheeky.
What would you call him? A little bit of a lol. Does he give you the
No,
old
he's
lols?
not. He's not.
He plays
Cheeky.
around with people and their heads and the separated limbs.
Well, he's a powerful baddie because he kicks Thor's ass around a little bit.
Right.
And everybody else that's in there
Right.
trying to stop him. He's not cheeky because cheeky's
He's in berserker
exclusive to
mode. Though.
Loki.
He's in berserker mode, isn't he?
But yeah, massively.
But he's a dark elf, isn't he? Who's just basically is a berserker.
And he is there to
Berserk.
steal the Tesseract.
He's infiltrated. I think he purposely got himself caught because people went, well, Big Steve, he's not really big, is he? I think it's ironic. They
Yeah,
call him
yeah.
Big Steve. And then he sniffs a bit of the old beak.
Yeah.
And next minute, then he's berserker, 10 pint Steve.
Yeah, but
And he
what?
smashes through things.
But he wanted to take the Tesseract. Is that why you infiltrated?
No, they were
It's
after the ether.
About us to get the ether back.
Yeah.
From the girl who was already okay. So Jane was already there by then. Oh
Well,
yeah, true that.
I don't think
I'm
he
just
knew that
remembering the film.
Jane was there. I think he just was there for that reason. The
Got
Dark
it.
Elves just wanted to infiltrate, so that's why they got caught very easily.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, oh, but shit, aren't they these villains? And he's like, oh, but he's Big Steve. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
you just
Steve.
wait.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 10 pints.
He's fine now, but give him an hour.
triple 20.
Yeah. And then obviously Loki tells him how to get out.
Because Loki is once again manipulating external influences for his own gain. That's what he does, and that's how he
Good
escapes.
old Loki. God love him.
Well, you say that, but
He's cheeky though, isn't he, Loki?
He's defo cheeky, but in a bloody great way.
the thing I took away from this film about Loki is he has some seriously long toes. There is a scene in this film where you can see his toes, and they are uncomfortably long.
What?
I think the ones that look like the face hugger from Alien, and they've got the proper knuckle. Like it could be a hand, but it's
That is so
like athletes
gross.
have them feet. They're ones like they've got like really muscular toes that you could probably hold an egg.
I know, but they're also minging at the same
You don't
time
like
because
feet, do
it's.
you?
I've got a thing against it. Just
I hope your feet are the best pristine feet in the planet.
no, they're not. I'm not a hypocrite here. I would be happy.
Mental.
I would be the first in the queue to have them lopped off.
To try on someone's slipper.
He's just got long toes, and it offended me a little bit.
I love that that's what you picked up
Scored
and
him
nobody
down.
else did.
It would have got a 10 if it wasn't for the toes.
Yeah.
You cast those toes wrong, Marvel.
Not to use the same, but he clawed it back slightly, not with his toes, but metaphorically.
Like a golden eagle.
Yeah, when he was skipping along pretending to be an Avenger. Oh, Cap.
Oh,
was
that
skipping-
was
skipping
so
like this on his
hilarious.
toes.
Wait, let me tell you, Loki just is the best character because of his humour, his cheekiness. That scene, that scene where he's
Despite
just
his
skipping
attempts
along.
of murder.
Yeah, like skipping along and just turning into Captain America and shit. That was absolutely hilarious.
That is a top cheeky moment.
That is one of the best scenes of
Yeah,
this
but that
film.
is genuinely a cheeky moment.
Yeah.
Ignoring
Massive
all
toes, isn't-
the murder in general.
Well, you know, you have
Yeah,
to
but it's the
sort of-
same person. How can the same person be not cheeky later?
Well, 'cause he's a
Cheeky's
sociopath.
Cheeky's inside of him.
What,
Is that his
him?
mate?
And he eat cheeky. Has Cheeky got massive toes?
We don't judge.
Yeah, that's right. Loki's got small toes, but he had Cheeky, and Cheeky's got massive.
But he just kept just like throwing out these one-liners throughout this film. Fucking brilliant. I love him.
Oh, you're easy to please, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Mark was noticeably quiet there.
Anyways. Yeah.
Fucking mental.
brilliant.
And she ain't cheeky either. But he had good scenes in it, and actually it was a good cameo from Chris Evans. Nice payday.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, easiest
Love
day's
that
work
scene.
he's ever done.
In it.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, okay, where are we up to now? I've got Heimdall Takes Day Off at the pub,
Oh, yeah?
which I think is when he's turning a blind eye to Thor
Yes.
at breaking Loki out.
Yeah, and committing what's the...
And then
worst
I've
thing?
got Thor.
Prison Break.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've got Thor trying to fly spaceship, a bit like me trying to figure out how something works, which is when he's just whacking the buttons and getting more infuriated with the random whacking
That
of
is
said
so
buttons.
you, by the way, yeah.
Because it's not working. It's going, this isn't working, and just hitting it a little bit harder, hoping that will make it work.
And it
I
did.
think it's a man thing, isn't it? 'Cause
It is a man
we don't
film.
read instructions.
No.
And there's always a screw missing.
Yeah.
At the end of your assembly.
Yeah.
You know, and you go in, I have no idea where that come from. And then you find out when you sit on the chair and it just falls apart. It was the actual main thing that kept it together. I think it's a bit of a challenge if you don't read the instructions.
I saw a lot of myself in Thor in that particular scene.
Just not the six-pack.
Well, that's me, obviously, after the dark matter bomb thing.
Yeah, but you just look like Swiss cheese after that. You look like the polka dot man. You just have holes on you. That's not a thing.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I liked that.
Me too.
Okay.
Thor had his shirt off again, didn't he? A lot.
Yeah. In fact, Chris Hemsworth sort of drew a line at this point, didn't he?
What, with his nipple?
No, with the gratuitous
Sexualization
of his character. I think it was after this film. I think he has said in an article that was sort of the last film where he was particularly, because I think his issue with that scene was that it didn't lend itself to the story in any particular way. It was just him without his top on.
Yeah.
There was no reason for him not to do that.
Other than give all the women in the world a load of pleasure.
I know, but if that had been reversed and it had been a woman, and I appreciate that there's been many films over many decades
Black
where
Widow said the same thing, didn't she?
Exactly, this thing has happened. Well, no, it was different with Black Widow because she was sexualized in order to infiltrate. She was playing a character as part of her character. With Thor, he was just we were watching him get washed. We didn't need to watch him get washed.
No, it's those little things you don't... What?
Well, I'm sure we did.
It's equal opportunities, yeah. I mean, it comes a point when your shirt's constantly being ripped off. For no reason. Gust of wind, shirt comes off. He looks a bit more ripped, this one.
He's huge.
I mean, you wouldn't have noticed this, but Ishtar, did you notice at all?
What?
That he was a bit more ripped in this one?
Yeah. Well...
How many times did you pause it?
I thought that first one didn't float your boat. What floated your boat in this scene that didn't float your boat in the wet t-shirt contest that he did in the previous one?
Yeah, which one required a mop bucket?
Look, I'm not a massive Thor fan, because I do think he's a wee bit muscly, but this Thor film wasn't as good as the last Thor film, so I just clutched at a few extra straws that I didn't in the last one.
You clutched at some straws and found out it was Thor's penis?
Thor's hammer.
Yeah, that's what he calls it. I'll knock it out.
Anyways.
Indeed.
In your notes, what are we up to?
Well, I've actually got us onto the Dark Elf world now, where they pretend that Loki double tricks Thor.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when this happened, did you think that was legitimately Loki screwing his brother over?
I was like, holy shit, he just chopped his hand off. Yeah, I wrote it in my notes.
Nice Disney trope there.
Yeah, what?
Yeah. Well, because it was his left hand.
I don't know which hand it was. I just said,
oh
my God, Loki cuts off Thor's hand, !
Because every time there's a Star Wars film, somebody loses a left hand.
Oh, right.
As a minority group myself, of a left-handed person.
Yeah, I find prejudiced against.
Yeah.
Why can't it be a right-hander?
Exactly.
Why is it always
You're left-handed, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm left-handed. Yeah. Well, I'm ambidextrous. You genuinely thought that Loki had tricked him?
Yes, I did.
You see, I remember the first time I watched this film, I actually did think it was part of the plan, because it felt too obvious that he was going to screw him over, and it felt too obvious that Thor would be so naive as to allow it to happen.
No, but they'd all said, can you trust your brother?
And he'd said repeatedly no.
So he had no choice at that point because he needed Loki, so it was completely
but that doesn't mean to say
plausible that would have happened.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean to say you put your weapon away or you don't keep your guard up.
Yeah, I mean, with Loki, you never know.
Yeah.
Because he's not really family.
That's the point.
So you never know where you are with him, and he's always cheeky, isn't he?
Exactly, so it was definitely plausible he could have chopped his hand off.
It was good to keep the audience guessing, did he, didn't he, kind of thing.
Yes.
And
there was a big, huge relief when you realised he was only playing.
But he's done it before. You just don't trust him. The whole point of the fact he's called a god of mischief.
Yeah.
You never know what he's going to do, whether it's true or whether he's being real. The whole thing's a charade half the time.
Yeah,
even when you think he's being sincere. He's not. He's just doing it for an angle.
I loved it. Yeah, good seeing that.
Where are we up to now? They're on the Dark Planet now, so Thor needs to find a way off the planet, doesn't he, really? And he goes into the cave and finds all them shoes and the car keys, more importantly.
Yeah,
and then they randomly
Volvo.
just turn up into Earth.
London.
Yeah, as you do.
The most invaded place on the planet.
Right.
It's got everything else there, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Can I also just preempt what we're about to talk about, which is in the last scene now, right?
Okay.
Where the fuck is S.H.I.E.L.D. when all this shit's going on?
You mean all the people who should have been out doing stuff?
Well, yeah, because Thor's obviously... There's all this shit going on Earth, right? Thor's obviously trying to fix fix it. But where's all the rest of the Avengers?
Maybe they're like an ambulance. It takes that long for them to get there. By the time they did,
They're dead.
It's already happened.
Well, it's referenced, isn't it, in season 2 or 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. about second Thor film.
They were on a lunch break.
Were they on a lunch break?
Demarcation, you need to not cross over the different roles each one plays. For the interest of the MCU is appreciate that all these groups that exist in the MCU are probably doing other stuff. Because it's an easy fix though, isn't it? Because you could then say, well, why didn't AIM get involved, and why didn't your mate Justin Hammer, why didn't he turn up, why didn't Iron Man turn up? Every time you have a problem, it could be easily resolved by just get Iron Man to send some.
Well, it could have been a quick phone call between Thor and Nick Fury. Be like, hey, can I have an Avenger? And they'd be like, no, sorry, they're already fighting some demons somewhere else. Just handle it, Thor. That would have boxed that off.
I like to think the fact that you were aware of it and just didn't want to micromanage people.
Because at some point Thor didn't look like he had it under control, although at the end he did.
Well, it starts off in a car.
Yeah.
And this gets people from London very angry. The underground, that too. The underground, where they're all very much, if you get on that train at that station, it is not 2 stops down that you get off and you're at Greenwich.
Yeah, you'd said that. I don't know what. Yeah, I'm not good with the London Underground.
Go check the Underground, go watch the movie back. I don't know the precise one because, to be honest, I only ever use the Underground when I'm unfortunate enough to have to go to London, and I certainly won't want to memorise it, but that is.
Well, the reason they get off the 2 stations is it costs a fucking fortune to carry on further.
No, if you've got your Oyster card.
If you've got an Oyster card, you may as well just keep the pearl in it because it's probably better off than spending it on that travel. I actually went and was staying in a house just opposite an MI5 safe house in Pimlico, which was pretty cool. And I walked past MI5 every morning to the train and taking photographs on the bridge as well, which I didn't get arrested for. And I did that because...
The life you live, Laven.
Oh no, it's just exciting.
Fucking random.
Yeah, it is. Well, I was going to say exciting, but you said fucking random, so we'll go with that one. Just email us, see what you think. Is it fucking random? Is it exciting? Pick one.
Exciting, I'll change it.
The reason why I walked to the Oval, which is where they play the cricket, is because to get the train from Pimlico and do 3 stations was about 12 fucking quid. So I can understand why people get off after 2 stations to go. I just walked the rest. So technically it's probably not wrong.
This obviously brings us into the 3rd act, which involves Maliki, who we haven't mentioned throughout the course of this film, even though he kills Frida and is the big bad throughout. Yeah. Is this an indication of how little a shit we give about this character?
Yes.
Malekith is one of the weaker villains, and I remember an article, or I think it was an interview that was given by Christopher Eccleston, who was Doctor Who, of course, stepped away from the Doctor Who role because he didn't want to be typecast. And he said he kind of did it for a paycheck and it wasn't one of his favourite roles. Having worked with Christopher Eccleston, he's not a bad guy.
Oh, hang on. For the benefit of the recording, that's the 2nd time we've had to pick that name up off the floor today.
Yeah, we did a behind the scenes mention.
Tell us more.
He's a very nice guy.
Don't encourage him.
When I worked with him on the A Word, he used to run to set. He wouldn't get the chauffeur-driven car. He used to run to set, and it was in Cumbria, in the Lake District.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I put in my notes, he's a toe walker.
What the hell's a toe walker?
He walks on his toes.
He walks on his toes.
The clue's in the title there, Ishtar. Sorry, she went. Yeah, he's a heel walker. Was that he walks on his leg? What?
Yeah, he's a toe walker, and I didn't know whether you've noticed that because you and him are such close friends.
We were close, standing together in the scene we were in together.
Was that like you and Liv Tyler close?
Yeah.
Mm.
She still sends me cards saying, please don't get in touch with me ever again. And
stop rummaging through the bins.
Yeah, can you stop looking through my window?
Or the court letter saying, please keep your distance.
It's basically they've extended the sort of
exclusion.
Distance. Yeah, the exclusion zone. There's no fly zone now. Apparently a helicopter over the hotel doesn't work either.
And the drone.
And the fast roping. That's how much work you get.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder why you'd hired me for that job the other week.
Did you not know your drone was going into a shower curtain? Yeah. Zoom in. It's like Blade Runner. Zoom in, quadrant C4. We're not playing battleships. It's that close yet, but he's a nice guy. He just ran to set. Don't know whether that makes a good guy, just very athletic.
Healthy,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it a healthy guy.
Cool.
But
he seems nice.
for the purposes of this film...
he wasn't the greatest villain, but I think he knew that, so he won't be upset, sorry Christopher, if you say he was a bit shit. He was a paycheck, and, some actors don't always like the jobs they did. I gave the example of Michael Caine, who did Jaws The Revenge, who said it wasn't bothered, it paid for his Malibu house. We What are you going to do?
I mean, if you look at all of the baddies that we've had so far, this by far was the least interesting.
He's a generic species. He's a dark elf.
He's a bad guy because he looks like a bad guy. He wants to do bad things because he's a bad guy,
but he had no personality. Like the Skrull have had a personality. Everybody else that's been a baddie is, you know,
who?
The Skrull, Whiplash.
Oh yeah, we can mention it. Sorry, it's because we're watching in chronological order. My bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm still in phases, and I'm thinking, are you allowed to say that? It's these bloody rules he comes up with. I never know where I am.
It's not my rules.
It's
we're
like
just
a Marvel minefield.
We're just trying to protect the interests of anyone who's watching it. Like
you and Richie.
Me and Richie.
Yeah.
Hey, Richie.
You might speak to Richie actually.
Oh really?
Yeah, because it's in the company that I can't tell you because I basically his manager's a twat.
Okay. What were we saying?
Basically, Malekith wasn't a very strong
villain.
villain.
Wasn't. Yeah, compared to the others, for me, he wasn't. Yeah.
They look good as baddies.
Yeah. As the films go on, you're going to have a couple of duds, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you've been spoilt with other strong villains. Because Loki is pretty decent as a villain.
He's fucking brilliant.
Right-ish, calm yourself.
Dude. Oh my god.
I almost feel this film was more about developing those characters within that universe.
Yeah.
He was merely a vehicle to keep things a bit lively.
Amen, 100%.
But Loki and Thor's relationship
Yes.
and how they reacted to Mum's death
Yes.
and how Dad reacted to it was more important than actually the bad guy. The bad guy was just the MacGuffin.
Yeah. Well, if you think about like James Bond films, when you had the Sean Connery period of films, they were all about Spectre. And then when you had the Roger Moore phase of films, they were all your generic villains, mostly Russia. There's always some sort of villain you want to bring in, usually Russia, China, or
Brits.
or the Middle East, or the Brits, yeah. This is the kind of a generic villain to give the story an antagonist. But at the same time, I think I would agree that this film was purely to build the characters that we know from the first film and move them forward as part of a wider connective universe. But at the same time, as we know there's a Thor 3 and we know there's a Thor 4, to build those characters, keep it reasonably grounded in the comics and where it fits in the greater universe. I think Malekith and the Dark Elves are just merely, as you say, a vehicle.
Like the Skrull. It was there for that one movie and that's it so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, they gave me Skrull vibes.
Can you get that on a website? Batteries not included.
The big ending for this is Loki pretending to be Odin.
Yes.
Because Thor thinks Loki's dead at the hands of Malekith and even says to Odin, do you know what? Brother was alright in the end. It's interesting because Odin's really gushy to Thor, which I'm not sure we would have got from the real Odin. He seems to be a dad who's not quick to provide the positive reinforcements to his kids, whereas Loki's feeding Thor he feels Thor needs to hear to bugger off, which leaves Loki in charge of Asgard pretending to be Odin.
So where is Odin at this time?
Well, we don't know.
Put him in a cell probably. It's nothing like a nod, wink to the audience. Isn't like a
cheeky.
Yeah, cheeky. Because he's not. You're absolutely right. His dad wants him to be a better leader for Asgard because obviously his dad being the warrior and his brother's kind of had a bit of privilege, not really being the front of battles. He's been involved in some fighting and whatever, but his dad essentially lost an eye and countless soldiers over the years defending Asgard. His dad's hardcore, really wants him to be not a bit wet, and that's why I suppose Loki's not in line for the throne because one, he's a half-breed essentially, and two, he's a bit wet. He uses his brain rather than brawn, whereas Thor is more of a warrior, so I think his dad just wants him to book his ideas up and stop being a playboy.
Well, Odin very much wants Thor to become king, and is very determined that be the case, and is quite complimentary to Thor because he's out there instilling peace in the Nine Realms, whereas what Loki sees is that Thor, which is an interesting development in his character because in the first film he was very much about wanting to become the king and war, king, rah. Whereas in this film, he quite clearly advocates that he doesn't want to be king. He just wants to be Thor and do Thor things and help keep things ticking over, but he doesn't want the hot seat, which is why Loki's very understanding when he's pretending to be Odin, because he tells Thor what Thor needs to hear about. Don't worry, you don't need to be the king, and I'm ever so proud of you, and I love you loads. And yeah, Loki was an alright egg in the end. And so Thor goes off happy as Larry, thinking that he's had his dad's approval for doing what he wants to do, whereas nod, wink, while Loki's technically technically got what he was after in the first place, albeit he's got to dress up every day.
Yeah.
Cheeky.
Super cheeky, but gotta love Loki for doing it. He's getting his way.
Self-preservation.
Yeah, damn right.
Okay, that kind of brings me to the end of this. Apart from, of course, the post-credit scene. Go on. Looks like you want to say something. I mean, on the basis that you provided no notes, would you like to throw in what it is that you want to talk about?
I just wanted to say...
Because my back's hurt from doing all this lifting.
Shut up. The whole end scene with like Jane and Eric, you know, using those machines to try and close up the realms or whatever was bullshit. Just didn't understand where the placement of those machines needed to be and why they needed to be that way and how that all came together. That was stupid for me.
What machines?
The things that they had on the stands.
The things they used to try and defeat Malekith at Greenwich.
Oh, that pinpointed the stream or whatever.
Yeah, that didn't make too much sense to me. It was just bullshit. We don't need to talk about it any more than that, but it was just a bit bleh.
Well, we'll come back to the post-credits scenes after this. Let's just shelve that for now, because I think that would fall nicely into the general thoughts of this film, because you just described the most important part, the third act there, and the fact that you don't know what it is, or frankly give a shit about what it is, might give us an indication of where you sit on this film as a whole. Mm-hmm. But let's save that little nutshell, people, for after our Easter egg section, which Mr. Latham is going to delve into now. He's going to tell us lots of Easter eggs, many of which we probably will have to edit out because they relate to films in the future.
I've learned.
Oh, you've learned, Ed.
There's not loads of them because we've covered a few. The Cronin are introduced, a villain or species from Saturn. Before you saw Loki or Surtur, in fact, the aliens from Saturn called the Cronins were one of the ones that Thor would regularly fight with. You see them during the battle scene release one of the big, huge ones into the battle. You would have identified it because it was the one that was raging towards them. Mm-hmm. You've already mentioned that you saw Stanley's cameo in the mental hospital.
Yeah.
The 9 realms we've already covered. Again, blink and you miss it moment. Marvel doesn't leave anything on the table. They always make use of everything. For fans, everything that's happening, you've got to be really on it because they have stuff going on in the background that you won't even know. Do you know what I mean? There's loads of stuff. We've already covered that. The Collector...
We'll come back to the Collector, yeah. But, well, maybe we should discuss the Collector now then.
Okay. Post-credit scene links nicely into Guardians of the Galaxy with the Collector. Collector is called Tanalia Turin, known from the comics as the Collector. Now, in that scene, you have Sif and Volstagg bringing Ether to him, who's played by Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
And I think he plays a good role, is that? He doesn't say much.
Very Del Toro.
Yeah, when he was in The Usual Suspects, he kind of just grunts and talks.
But he looks dark and he looks a bit sneaky.
So the Collector is...
Not cheeky.
Not cheeky.
Well, no.
He's
sneaky.
He's sneaky because the reason he's called the Collector is because he takes things he wants for his collection as a very big menagerie, so he sells to women.
Come and have a look at this.
Check out my cages.
Oh, is that why they were in cages? There was women in the cages.
Yeah, he's got one of everything.
Yeah.
He's a collector.
Yeah. Nothing gets past you, does it?
No.
Hey, tell you what.
Small little cookie.
Oh, you cheeky. But
No, sneaky.
they've kept this character close to the comic book version of him because in the comics it's a purveyor of artifacts that are hard to find that he acquires. Probably is the best person to give these to, and obviously has mentioned that these are, which we don't know until this point, Infinity Stones. They don't look like Infinity Stones at this stage.
Well, they give him one, don't they?
Yeah.
Because there's already one on Asgard.
Somewhere, yeah.
So we've got the Tesseract or the Mind Stone, which is the one from Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
They've now given the Space Stone to the Collector so that there aren't two stones in the same place.
Yeah.
Good place to keep it, although he's trying to attain a lot of power.
Well, he wants them all because then he has a full collection.
And the things he collects are usually items that hold a lot of power anyway. So, like, for example, cosmic energy stuff, which we'll touch upon as time goes on. I won't go into it too much. I've mentioned it in the previous one. In the post-credit scene, Sif does refer to the Tesseract. He is aware of it, but in the timeline, probably from when we watched Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
In terms of when Thor 2 comes out, we were already aware the Tesseract's been taken back to Asgard because...
Yeah. But at the point of watching Captain Marvel, the Tesseract is back on Earth. In the 90s it is anyway. It's on Earth and it's with S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Because we don't see it again, do we, until later on. For you, you've seen it already.
Yeah.
Well, twice.
Well, I've seen that
And
the
it's been-
Tesseract was brought from Earth back to Asgard by Thor at the end of Avengers.
But then because you've seen Captain Marvel
Yeah.
in the chronological order,
Yeah.
you also know that at some point in the history of it being hidden by
Yeah.
the Germans,
Yeah.
that it's gone to S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
We didn't know that until 8 years later.
Yeah.
Your journey's been a bit more enhanced, is all I'm saying.
Enlightening.
Yeah.
Question though, why did they decide to give it to the collector? Presumably they think it's safer there.
Yeah.
Because he has a security system. But by the same token, do they not think,
It's risky.
as someone who has a major addiction to collecting things, that by giving him one, there will be an avalanche of desire to collect all the rest of them?
The warrior, for as it is, they're not people to be messed with, and I think he knows that if he double crosses them.
So they're relying upon fear.
There's a lot of things playing on. We don't know at this point there's more than just one Infinity Stone. We find that on the course of the movies. So I thought it was quite nice because it introduces us to Phase 2, which when it came out was more planet-based.
So how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about this end scene? Because it's a big note change, isn't it, from what you've seen up to this point?
Well, to be honest, this was a little bit more exciting for me because I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy. That's actually one of the only Marvel films I've actually watched a couple of times because I really think it's a funny film. So I've seen The Collector from that.
Yeah.
Although now I've got a bit more of an understanding of how important The Collector is because I didn't get that feeling from when I watched the other film.
In the comics, he's a big character.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. His character, for the purpose of where these stones need to end up,
Yeah.
is massively important. Marvel very cleverly dropping breadcrumbs. It's not going to be a spoiler to say we pick these things back up later on. And Marvel, when they've been writing all this and planning it all out on the board, have gone, yeah, that'll be great for this particular thing. And it takes us off the planet now. We saw a brief encounter with Tony Stark.
I would argue we've already left the planet in Asgard, and
because this is Phase 2. So Phase 2
Yeah.
is mostly leaving
Okay,
the planet.
fair enough.
But we got a brief intro with the Chitauri with Tony Stark, and that was why he ended up getting a bit... He's all Earth-based. Thor, by the fact he's off Asgard, takes us now into space, as it were. And now you go in to see the Collector. We find out more as things go on and leads us into Guardians of the Galaxy, which is all space-based.
Yeah.
We're moving
From
this kind
Earth.
of... into other realms.
Yeah.
Which then makes you feel, as a human on planet Earth, a little bit insignificant when you consider how powerful these people are, when before all you had was the Nazis stealing technology with Red Skull.
Yeah.
And now you're thinking, flipping heck, there's a guy
True
who can
that.
wield a massive hammer.
Oh, really?
These people who can just turn up through portals, how do you defend against that?
Yeah, exactly.
It does take it away from just being Earth-based, expands the universe.
I love it. Very exciting.
And talking about chalkboards, we see Selvig's chalkboard, and as I say, Marvel do not leave anything to chance or leave anything on the table. So those who were paying attention to his rant, was he wearing clothes at this point in the mental hospital?
was.
he was.
He put some
It
clothes
was later
on.
when he decided that life was better without pants.
And whilst he's giving his rant to the other inmates, there's a few references to things within comic history and the universe in general. The words I picked out were the 616 universe, the Fault, and the Crossroads. The comics have different Earths as part of the multiverse. For example, in DC you have Earth 1, Earth 2, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Earth 52. In this, the comics are classed as 616, which is a number that appears quite a lot in various movies as a reference to that Earth-based thing.
Okay.
That's on the chalkboard. You can screen grab it and zoom in.
He's actually got it up now, Pollard's
I
got
brought it up now. I can see the 616 now.
That's sort of the main universe for Marvel, which
Right.
everything sits on,
He's got Cosmic Eclipse written down.
which could well be to do with Convergence. Then you have the Fault, which appeared as a massive tear in the universe caused by a Terrigen bomb thrown by Black Bolt, who is the leader of the Inhumans who live on the moon. They are in a show called The Inhumans, and they also appear in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We've seen them before, or not. If you've not seen anything to do with Marvel, your loss. But that's also from the comics. The other thing we mentioned is the Crossroads. Again,
Not to be confused with the soap opera Channel 5
Wavy
or
wall,
4.
do 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 do. That's not even the right music for it, then.
No one watched it, so they wouldn't know anyway.
That's true. Where you slam a door and the wall moves,
All right.
like,
No.
isn't it? The sets were just made by
Out of paper mache.
Blue Peter. In the comics, it's a bizarre, twisted reality that Doctor Strange sends Hulk to protect Earth from his rampages.
Okay.
So that's mentioned.
Cool.
Sure, there was more on there that I've missed. Please write in if you're not happy with what I've said. But that's about it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that, pal. Right, shall we do our scores for this?
Yes.
For the last few shows, you've had the chance to go last-ish, but I feel it's your turn to go first to tell us what your thoughts are and to give your score and justify your existence with that score.
Oh my god, that's a little bit harsh and pressure mounting. Thanks. I like the film. I don't think it is as bad as everyone was saying. Well, particularly
who was
you,
saying?
Pollard, was like saying it was a bit shit.
Spoiler alert for everyone. That's what I think about this film.
What are you going to do if he gives it 9?
No, I would expect that from you, not from him.
Oh.
Because your Latham logic defies all logic, but his logic somehow makes
It's an
some
Infinity Stone as
little
well.
bit of sense. No, I like the film. I like the fact that my favourite character, Loki, gets more airtime and more depth. I like the humour in it. Some parts of the film were a bit shit, like the final end scene, like the big bad. I think if it wasn't for Loki and Thor, this film, they are the principal two characters clearly, but like they kept it interesting for me. It wasn't the best film that I've seen, but it wasn't the worst film that I've seen either. I would watch it again.
Okay.
What would you give it out of 10?
What would I give it out of 10? What
Do you need to look, do you? Do you need to check what you wrote?
6 out of 10.
Okay. I was going to say, well, do you want to run through your sort of top 10? Because it's not quite a top 10 yet.
Shut
but
up. Yeah,
we've only seen 8 films.
Well, okay,
so it
yeah,
can't be.
fine.
That's what I meant. I wasn't being derogatory.
Which is what you normally are with my rankings. But
That's
anyways.
true. So do you want to go through your current top 8?
Yeah, so Avengers 9 out of 10, Iron Man 9 out of 10, Iron Man 2 8 out of 10, Thor 1 7 out of 10, Captain America 1 7 out of 10,
First Avenger.
Thor 2 6 out of 10 now, Captain Marvel 6 out of 10, Hulk 1 out of 10.
Okay. You're putting Thor the Dark World over and above Captain Marvel?
Yes, because it wasn't. I still like Captain America a little bit more than I liked Thor, and Captain Marvel was definitely not as good as Thor because Captain Marvel didn't have Loki.
Okay.
Boom, done.
Latham, do you want to tell us your logic to how you arrived at the score that you're going to give this film?
This film went through a plethora of changes of what I would score it as. So I've gone with an easy 7.
Okay.
And in terms of how it would rank, it would go under Thor and above Hulk. It nearly ended up with 6. It nearly ended up 8 because of the fact that I felt this movie was mostly setting groundwork for more to come and building character narratives and deepening the characters that we know at the cost of having a weak villain, possible weak plot B, which is essentially the Ether story. Jane was asleep at the wheel. Malekith wasn't very memorable. Even his second in command was a bit
How can you give a film 7 when you've just said that the leading baddie was asleep at the wheel, the leading lady was asleep at the wheel, and the big MacGuffin fight scene at the end was just...
Mark, how can you do that?
Well, I'm glad you both asked me that.
How?
Because it also had very, very strong moments between the characters. So with Frigga...
Who's Frigga?
What?
Who's Frigga?
The one who dies?
Is that what her name is?
Frida.
Frida.
Frida?
Frida.
Is it Frida? That sounds...
Frigga.
Right, let's
think
get
it's
on
Frigga.
the IMDb, shall we? Let's
You
see
wish.
which one of these two was right.
So she died.
Thor 2.
In case you're listening to this dead air, these two are just IMDbing it for their reference.
Frigga.
Frigga? Yeah, I saw potato, right. I'm not
Fucking
American.
hell, Pollard.
What?
Frigga.
It's Frigga.
You've been saying Frida.
You've been saying...
Yeah, but that's your fault for never doing any notes. I've implicitly said on multiple occasions I'm not to be relied upon. I rely upon him and Wikipedia. And when I say I rely upon him, it's what I can remember he's told me. And if you've listened to any of the previous shows we've done, you'll notice I don't always listen to him either.
So anyone who's been listening to Frida's death and got, I don't know why she died, she wasn't even in the movie.
Yeah, but neither of you two picked up on it.
I didn't remember her name. I was just like Thor's mum.
Thor's mum, wow, it's like Avengers at the beginning.
The thingammy, what's it?
Yeah, Avengers.
Yeah, thingamajig, yeah.
Avengers started.
Yeah.
The reunion.
The Avengers, yeah, get together.
Group hug. Frigga, but still got an extra G. It's not fucking Frida, is it? It's got more than one G in it. It's got 3 Gs, which is the fast pace this film was going. Because of the scene that she had, because of the scene with Loki and Thor, they just tipped it for me. I thought they were very good. And I also look at the star power as well. You've got flipping Anthony Hopkins in this, and the woman from Lethal Weapon, Frigga.
Rennie Russo.
Rennie Russo, yeah.
You can't remember her real name, though,
No, but I
can
know
you?
Frigga. Bloody Frida. Wasn't she some sort of Mexican politician with massive eyebrows?
Yes.
Played by Samaya Hayek.
Yeah.
Boom. See, I do know. So that reason is why it's not 6.5 and I made it 7.
But
And
you
so,
couldn't have 6.5 anyway,
exactly.
could you?
So I rounded it up and I gave it a 7, but it's a weaker 7 than Thor. And in case of those who have either not bothered to remember or you like Ishtar and haven't got a bleeding clue what day of the week it is, My top 7 currently
Well,
stand.
now top 8.
Top 8. So I'll read them as they are now. So Avengers Assemble is 9 out of 10. Iron Man is 9 out of 10. Iron Man 2 is 8 out of 10. Captain Marvelous is 8 out of 10. Captain America First Avenger is 7 out of 10. Thor is underneath at 7 out of 10. The new Thor 2 is weaker than that one, is 7 out of 10 there. And then Hulk, the first one, 6 out of 10.
Okay, very good.
Okay, Pollard.
Oh, it's good.
He does this every time. It's literally, you don't have to say it. You don't need to be asked. You're the last one in the 3.
He just looks at me with those eyes and be like, oh, ask me, just ask me.
Oh, please be asked. Just be.
Please.
Care.
Use your words.
Yeah.
Well, so this is one of my least favourite Marvel films in comparison to Hulk, which I don't strictly consider part of the Marvel universe. It's so shit. It's substantially better. This is a very run-of-the-mill, action-y, superhero-y movie, and there are some great scenes in this, and there's some great character development, which is largely offset by utter turgid nonsense and stupid rubbishness. We've already discussed the lacklustre performances of a couple of key characters, the lack of any story arc that really gives anyone any skin in the game. We don't really care about these Dark Elves. We don't really care about the MacGuffin-y things at this point in time. I have to mark it down. However, it's not a bad film, which is perhaps more for me how Marvel have set a high bar, that I'm feeling slightly disappointed with this film. But when I put it in the context of other films, it would have still been a perfectly acceptable action sci-fi movie that I would have gone and seen. So I'm going to give it 6 out of 10.
Whoop, whoop. Same as mine.
Which is the same of yours, although the way I've just described it
Was more eloquent than mine.
Well, no, you seem to be coming at it from a quite positive angle, but gave it the same score, whereas I'm coming at it from a slightly more negative perspective and have given it the same score.
Oh.
I think it was a bit of a disappointing movie and get 6 out of 10. You were like, oh, it's great, 6 out of 10.
No, I was saying it was great, but only because of basically Loki and Thor. But other than that, it wasn't full of like great content because the baddie wasn't memorable.
Well, to give everyone the definitive top 8,
Yeah.
I've got Avengers Assemble 10 out of 10, Iron Man 9 out of 10, Captain America First Avenger 8 out of 10, Thor 8 out of 10, Iron Man 2 8 out of 10, Captain Marvel 7 out of 10, Thor The Dark World 6, and Hulk 8th 4 out of 10. So those are our top 8 as they currently stand. Top 10 favourite characters. So what we do is each film we are allowed to move or add to our top 10 any characters that have been in this film. They will be fitted in and around those characters that we've already ranked in the previous films. And so, for example, Thor will have already been placed in our top 10 or not, as the case may be, from Thor 1 and the Avengers, but we won't be able to move him around except for downward until Thor 3 or the next Avengers film, whichever comes first. I can't remember. With that being the case, we're going to come back to you, Ish, first. Do you want to read out your top 10 as it stands at the moment and then let me know whether there's any movement?
My top 10, which, by the way, I got confused on my other one because it's actually below it.
Okay.
Right, so my top 10 was number 1 Loki from Avengers, number 1 Loki, 2 Black Widow, 3 Iron Man, 4 Thor, 5 Nick Fury, 6 Hulk, 7 Hawkeye, 8 Captain America, 9 Coulson, 10 Thanos.
Okay.
Based on this film, still the same. Because Loki was still my favourite character.
Did you say 10 Thanos?
Yeah, 10 Thanos. Remember we had an argument about the fact that he had no airtime, but I still put him at number 10 like you did with Ronan.
Yeah, I remember that,
Yeah, okay. That's my list.
Okay.
Damn good list, that, as I say every week.
Yeah, self-praise is no praise.
Except for Thanos being in there.
Whatevs.
And also, as I explained, if you remember, my one, Ronan the Accuser, wasn't in the post-credit scene. He was actually in the film. He wasn't when everyone
He
fucked
wasn't
off.
in there for much longer.
Doesn't
than
matter.
Thanos.
He's in the film. I mean, not being funny.
I
Best
felt
Boy
you
was
were
in the
taking-
film.
You were taking a slightly hypocritical line when you were arguing about Thanos.
Massively hypocritical.
It's
More
not
than
hypocritical
once.
if he's in the post-credit scene that we've already established no one stays for.
You had Iron Man in your bloody review of which film? The Hulk.
Was it Hulk? And is he in this post-credit scene?
Yes, he
Is he in a
is.
post-credit scene that follows the film before the post-credits?
Doesn't matter. You still
Okay.
had him in your number.
Yeah, there's
10.
another hypocritical. Fortunately, I, who properly applied the rules, were able to take a stance on both of those things, having not done them myself. So I shall sit here and
Anyway,
push my
can
crown.
I just say Loki Loki, you're amazing. I am your
Can't hear
biggest
you.
fan. He
Two
will.
things. One, he can't hear you, and two, he doesn't exist.
Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, I don't think he listens to this show.
You make Loki the
Do you
best character so
do you wanna
far
be a
in my
patron?
in my Marvel universe.
Would you feel so low-key if you met him?
I think
Yeah.
I think he is keeping low-key. That is a Pollard joke I think made many moons ago, which also got the same response. In fact, I believe Death walked past with a coffin and some tumbleweed.
Well, at least I know it wasn't my delivery. Right, well, do you want to tell us your top 10 as it stands, and then whether
Okay.
you're going to change anything?
Okay, here's mine. Best one
Oh,
ever.
brace yourself, people.
Hold on for the big ride, she said. Iron Man is in at 1, with Loki at 2. Talos is number 3. Red Skull at 4. Bucky Barnes is 5. Captain America at 6. Agent Peggy Carter at 7. Ronan the Accuser at 8. Right,
For
so
his 2-minute cameo.
best 2 minutes ever. Number 9, Abomination. Thunderbolt Ross is at number 10. And I ain't going to change it at all.
Really?
Yeah.
So Thor is still not ranking in your top. Thor is still not better than Thunderbolt Ross.
What the actual?
Hang on a minute.
Or Agent Becky Carter.
Becky! Who's Becky?
I said
Peggy's
Peggy.
sister.
I was just smiling when I said it.
Don't smile when you say words. Maybe that's what you do when you're Frida. Frida! If I thought he was good, he'd be on there, and he would be above Peggy Carter.
So you don't think Thor's good?
Well, because I just think with other people in the universe that we've seen, he's one that's had it a little bit easy. He's got a massive hammer. He's very strong. He's a lovely boy. He's got lovely, well-kept beard. He's got lovely, long flowing hair. And I just think, you know what? There's a few other people out there who could do a bit with their loving.
Because your number 11 is Whiplash and Pepper Potts, then
Yeah.
Nick Fury, and then Happy Hogan.
Okay, out
so
of
you
them-
consider all of them better characters
just
than
people,
Thor?
like, well, out of all of them, right, how many of those would you say feel a bit inadequate? I mean, to be fair, I might just redo that because they all feel a bit inadequate. No, but what I mean is, if you met Iron Man, he's a normal human being, isn't he? He's got a lot of money and he's very intelligent, so you might feel a bit insecure. Loki is a god. Talos is an alien. Red Skull is just a German who burnt his face. Bucky Barnes has got a massive arm but still human. Captain America, a bit arrogant. Peggy Carter, she's great.
Both.
Ronan the Accuser's just got a massive hammer, right? Thunderbolt Ross is just a person. And Abomination is just a person who got too much drugs.
Fucking hell.
So
Christ alive.
basically Thor
Every
is a
time
guy.
we go through your top 10s, I just feel irritated. And I shouldn't. A, because this is fun. B, because it really doesn't matter. But yet, it does.
I think you're letting this get to you too much. I think that's a good list of people.
I think you should have bloody Thor in your list.
No, because
There is no Captain America. There is no Thor.
There
There
is
is
Captain
no
America
Black
on there.
Widow. There is no... Oh, yeah, there is, sorry. There's no Black Widow. There's no Hawkeye. There's no Hulk. I mean, Christ alive.
no, there isn't. But there's a lot of people in there who I think are good. And Thor's a good guy. His character's good. He just doesn't do it for me. And my personal preference is Thor would make me feel so inadequate. It's untrue. Sitting across the bar top,
So you're discriminated against him because of your own feelings as a human being.
mostly, yeah, because I am in fact a human, not Asgardian, and I have a ripped body, which it is ripped, but that's just his trousers are too short. I feel like the Hulk at the moment. Tight trousers. They don't expand. In fact, I need a pair of them trousers for my belly. So
Primani.
yeah.
If they like
Actually,
to be
I
a
went
sponsor
in.
of the show.
I don't dislike him. I haven't got any prejudice against him as a person. I just think if you're looking at people who I'd want to team up with, he wouldn't be in my team.
Okay, what
That's
else?
all. Hang on a minute. Isn't the whole point of this top 10 my top 10?
It is, we don't mean to say we have to agree with you.
You're picking on people who just turn up for a bleeding bar of chocolate and you go, oh, I'll have you in my top 10. Thanos.
Pollard.
Oh, yeah, tell us about yours.
Yes, you want to listen to the proper top 10.
It's not though.
So I've got two characters that move in my top 10.
Okay.
Captain America is number 1, quite right. Number 2 is Iron Man, quite right. New in number 3, so he's moved up one place, is Loki.
Yeah.
And he moves above Thor, who's now 4th. And I did that because I do feel at this moment in time, Loki is a more complex, more interesting character than Thor is. And therefore, that's why I've swapped those two around. Number 5 is Black Widow. Number 6, Hawkeye. Number 7, Hulk 2, i.e. the new Hulk, not the shit stain what's his face is. Number 8 is Nick Fury. New at number 9, she's back into the top 10, is Darcy Lewis.
You love Darcy.
I do. I think she was funny. And number 10 is Agent Coulson. So Justin Hammer drops out of the top 10
Okay.
as a result of Darcy popping in there. And I'm very happy with that top 10.
Okay.
It's
good.
logical, it makes sense, and probably Probably
to
everyone
you.
will agree with me,
be
apart
honest-
from you two.
Well, let's be honest, all of our top 10s make sense to us
Yes.
individually. Also, you haven't got Iron Man on the very top, have you?
No, he's second.
Yeah, well, we should be at top.
Well,
so
he shouldn't, 'cause
fail.
Captain America should be top.
Yeah, but Captain America's just overpowered.
Team Cap.
Yeah, not seeing it.
We know where this is going. We know where this is going, Mr.
Well, Captain
Pollard.
America isn't in either of our top 10. Oh, he's in
in
my
mine.
top.
He's in yours,
Yeah.
although I ignored him as well. It's in number 6.
Doesn't fit his narrative. He
You
just-
little politician, Pollard.
I've got 9 in my top 10. Wow.
Okay.
Let's see how this develops as time goes on. Because
Okay.
I wouldn't be wrong in saying that the next few movies would shake these lists up quite dramatically.
Yeah, I think so. We've got Iron Man 3, we've got Captain America Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
and then we've got 2 Guardians of the Galaxies.
Whoop, whoop.
Then we've got Avengers Age of Ultron,
That's right.
then Ant-Man, then Civil War, then Black Panther.
Ant-Man I was getting mixed up with.
How exciting.
I feel Iron Man 3,
After Iron Man 3,
after
I think,
Iron Man
yeah,
3, it definitely kicks into another gear.
I think you're going to see a huge shift in the names on those lists after Iron Man 3.
I
Big
think
time.
so, because it's going to be...
Well, I'd like to see a shift in your list because your list hasn't changed in 2 movies.
Yeah, well, I want to see a shift in the film qualities that allow me to change them.
I want to see a shift of all who's in the bin. and
Yeah, but
start
also,
again.
I explained on our last issue of this series, I said mine are mostly tactical because I know what's coming and I'm allowed to because I rewatch shows for you, not me.
But I feel like you are just selecting.
That sounded so David Brent.
I feel like you're selecting them only for like who's got the best baddie army, who's got the best army,
And what if
would
I
kick
am?
everybody else out rather than who are the best characters. Your list would kick everybody else's ass.
No, it wouldn't.
I would want to be on your team.
For a start, he's got Abomination in there. Well, I've got Hulk in there, and Hulk has already kicked Abomination's ass straight away.
I've also got Thunderbolt Ross, who is Red Hulk, who would wipe the floor with all of you.
But he hasn't been Red Hulk yet.
Well, okay,
And
but he is
actually,
in
I
the
would
comics,
argue that,
so,
that Captain Marvel...
How mature we are.
So there.
No.
So yes, join us next time for Iron Man 3, when hopefully Ish will have actually done some notes,
Yeah.
or at least be
Hey.
able to remember what the title of the film is.
All happened.
Well, the next film will see a shift in the debacle that is your top 10, Pollard, and Ishtar will remember the name of this film because it's called Iron Man
3.
Well done. Easy, isn't it? Thank you, Marvel, for making things easy as we move on. Thank you all for listening. Tune in next time. Excelsior!
Get social at the 2 Marks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also check them out on YouTube.